We've been talking about deadlocks for a while now, and we said we'll be exploring the ideas of prevention, avoidance, detection, and recovery of a deadlock. So, in this segment, I'm going to be focusing on how do you recover from a deadlock. So, ideally, you would want to make sure a deadlock never happens, but if for some reason it ends up happening, you want to first detect it, which we'll see how in a separate segment. And once you've detected that there is a deadlock, you want to do something to recover from it. Now there are a couple of things you can do. One is you have to somehow abort the processes, right? So we'll go back to this example. This is the example we've been looking at from our very introduction to deadlock, right? Two processes, two resources. This was the REG we saw in a previous segment, and this is the deadlock. So there is a deadlock here, and you have only one instance of S, one instance of Q. So one is waiting for the other. There's a deadlock. This is what we saw. Now you were not able to prevent this deadlock for some reason, let's say. So the deadlock happened, and you realized either by drawing the graph or by some other way that the deadlock happened. What are the things you can do? One thing is you abort all the processes. So you terminate all the processes, whatever state of run. If you remember from one of the very early topics we discussed, the processes have states. There's running, there's ready, there's waiting, there's terminated, and all of that. So one thing you can do is terminate or abort all processes, and you send them back to the ready queue. They have to start afresh again, irrespective of how much progress they've made with their execution. Now this is, of course it will kill the deadlock, because there are no processes only, then where is a deadlock going to come from? But the thing is, this is costly, right? Undoing a process means you have to redo all the computation, and redoing is one part. Whatever changes were made to the registers, the intermediate values and all that has to be erased and undone. There is context switch, which we studied about. So this is costly. Or else you can abort one process at a time. Right, by abort one process at a time, I mean instead of killing everything, you choose any one process, you terminate that, and you check if there is a deadlock. So like I chose to terminate P1, I checked, there's no deadlock, well and good. Or else I could have chosen instead to terminate P0, equally valid choice, again no deadlock, well and good. So that is also something we can do. Now this is less expensive as compared to the first idea, of course, because better to kill a few processes than kill all processes. But again, which process are you going to choose to terminate? I randomly chose P0 or P1, but you can't do that, right? In a computer there are things to be taken care of. So that is one question. Secondly, after deleting one process, you have to go back, check is there still a deadlock. If yes, again you kill the second process, go back, check, so on and so forth until the deadlock is removed. So that is one thing. And the choice of which process to terminate depends on its priority, how much progress it has made, and how longer it needs to work to finish itself, what type of resources it uses, and so on and so forth. So basically you either terminate all processes blindly, which is an expensive decision, or you choose to terminate one process at a time until the deadlock is cleared, where again the decision making depends on a bunch of factors. And you have to, after every abortion, you have to go back and check whether the deadlock is eliminated or it is still there. So that is one thing you can do. Or else resource preemption. Again, see, we saw right back when we were discussing necessary conditions, we saw preemption is a necessary condition for a deadlock. I mean, no preemption is a necessary condition for a deadlock. So nobody should be willing to give up their resources without finishing their task. And then when we were talking about deadlock prevention also, we looked at how to break one of the four conditions. No preemption was a condition. We saw that you can try to break that condition. That will help you prevent a deadlock, but then starvation might happen. So from a prevention perspective, resource preemption is not a very good idea. So if you encourage the culture of processes giving up resources just because someone else wants, as a rule, then it's going to lead to starvation. So don't do that all the time, but when you know a deadlock has happened, you can do that, right? So it is like if someone's going to keep putting others before themselves all the time, we say, it takes a toll on you. But when you know there is explicitly an argument between you and someone, it's a good idea to be the bigger person for your own well-being, that kind of thing. So you don't have to give up your resources every time someone else wants the same resource. But if there is a deadlock, then you can give up your resources, you can preempt. But again, the idea is who is going to preempt. Going back to our same deadlock example, the good old example we've been working with, who's going to choose to be the bigger person here? Will it be P1 or P0? So that's again a choice we have to make, right? And on what basis do we make it? Cost factors, number of resources, how much progress it has made, all of that. And when we choose to preempt, what should be done with that process? So when I say preempt, let's say P1 is choosing to give up its resources. So this person is giving up on S so that P0 can finish its work and then it will get S. But what does P1 do? Should it undo the intermediate calculations or whatever work it had done? Should that be temporarily saved somewhere? That kind of questions also need to be answered. So I'm not saying preemption is a bad idea or a good idea. All I'm trying to drive home is that whatever you choose to do to prevent a deadlock once it has happened, to recover from a deadlock once it has happened, there are going to be some overheads, some prices to pay, some things to think about. So that is about and starvation, important point, sorry I missed that. So again, the starvation might happen here also, right? There's no guarantee that, again, every time there's a conflict, if it's one person who's going to make the adjustment, that's not a sustainable thing, be it in a general context or in terms of computer science, same thing, right? What if every time there is a deadlock, P1 is the one who's going to keep giving up? P1 will never manage to get its work done. So you have to ensure that the choice of victim process, the process which is going to be terminated, we call it the victim, the choice of victim should happen keeping all these parameters in mind. So that's about recovering from a deadlock.